Psychological Entropy, a Framework for Understanding Uncertainty-Related Anxiety, is a paper written by Jacob B. Hirsch, Raymond A. Marr, and Jordan B. Peterson that argues anxiety arises from uncertainty and can thereby be modeled like entropy. Perception and behavior are understood to be oriented by the minimization of uncertainty for certain goals. What this paper does not directly address is how perception and behavior are oriented by the meta-goals of minimization of behavioral uncertainty and minimization of perceptual uncertainty, which is what I'd like to address in this video. Let me first lay out the 4 quadrants of uncertainty management these meta-goals present. First, we have behavior oriented towards reducing behavioral uncertainty, then perception oriented towards reducing perceptual uncertainty, perception oriented towards behavioral uncertainty, and finally behavioral uncertainty towards perceptual uncertainty. In previous videos, I've discussed how the flow of information and the constraint towards action are ideally complementary in biology. For each quadrant, we can describe the healthy, complementary form of such a pattern and the pathological form. First, let's talk about behaving in ways that reduce behavioral uncertainty. In its most pure form, alienated from meaning, this results in OCD-like rigidity and compulsive repetition. The action becomes self-referential and decoupled from any meaning. However, this same quadrant can just as easily be associated with meaningful ritual and beneficial habits. The next quadrant is about looking at things for the sake of knowing what to look at. A healthy form of this behavior is exploration and curiosity, though shifting attention merely for the sake of reducing anxiety results in ADD, a diffuse attention and restlessness. The third quadrant is perception oriented towards behavioral uncertainty. This means paying attention to things that tell you what to do. A healthy form of such a pattern is study and development of the theory behind potential practices. However, it becomes unhealthy when it devolves into ideological rigidity and dogmatism. The last quadrant is behavior oriented towards improving perceptual uncertainty. Ideally, this manifests as deliberate practice and experimentation, allowing one to more deeply perceive the world and your own place in it. However, it can devolve into mechanical empiricism, where you're only doing what you already know, not actually learning anything new. The difficulty with making judgments between these healthy and pathological manifestations is clear. If you're stuck in a cycle of compulsive behavior or restlessness, attached to dogmatic beliefs or old habits, you're by definition stuck in a frame of reference where you can see no way out. Peterson points to the solution in his book Maps of Meaning, in which such frame traps where meaning breaks down are described as a confrontation with the unknown, with chaos. To defeat this terrible dragon, you must enter the belly of the beast, sink into the mire, and at the bottom find your father and save him and bring him back to the surface. Or to be less poetic about it, you have to rediscover the traditional worldview and practices you inherited from your ancestors, and try to revitalize it for the modern age. While critiquing existing traditions and power structures has its place in burning away the dead wood, the only way to overcome a collapse of meaning is to take on the responsibility of revitalization of those old structures. Critique alone cannot produce a new frame.